This is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
In the news tonight, looking for answers. A 4-year-old is crushed to death at Vancouver Airport. BC taxpayers will pay to upgrade security at abortion clinics. And a bargain hunter's guide to Vancouver's best places to eat, cheap.
The CBC Evening News with Kevin Evans and Gloria Makarenko.
Good evening.
And welcome to a Friday edition of the Evening News.
A vending company employee has told CBC News that airport officials prevented him from properly installing a change machine that tipped over, crushing a Surrey youngster. 4-year-old Jaskamal Sohi died in hospital yesterday, 4 days after the accident. He suffered massive head injuries when a machine used to change bills and loonies into quarters fell on him.
His parents are in shock and under sedation. But as Donna Friesen reports, the family's doctor is speaking out. He says someone has got to accept responsibility for the tragedy.
I don't think if there is anything so unsafe should be at the airport in a public place.
He's not only the doctor, but a friend of 4-year-old Jaskamal Sohi's family. The 4-year-old was with his mother at the airport last Sunday when somehow a 2-meter-tall, 128-kilogram coin changer, like the one on the right, fell on top of him.
The mom said he was just, putting in quarters and, just playing with the machine, but he wasn't pulling it or anything.
Did his mom see it happen?
Yeah. She just ran, but by the time it had landed, right?
He suffered massive head injuries and was put on life support.
And the only reason we were put him on life support was to wait for the dad.
For the dad to come back from India.
So he could have one last look at his baby.
Yesterday, the life support was switched off. The boy died minutes later. RCMP have seized the change machine, leaving only the holes in the floor where it's believed it may have been bolted. They've asked an engineer to help answer a number of questions.
The angle of inclination and what time the machine itself would fall on its face, where was the center of gravity in the machine, factors as to the weight distribution. Can part of the weight of the machine actually have shifted and caused it to fall?
We talked to an employee from Pacific Vending who hasn't spoken to police yet and wouldn't go on camera, but he tells us he wanted the machine bolted to the wall. He says airport people said that would cause too much noise for customs officials on the other side, so the airport decided to bolt it to the floor. No one from the airport or Pacific Vending would comment, except to say they'll cooperate fully with the RCMP and coroner's investigation. There are other smaller change machines at the airport. Officials say they've all been checked and are secure. The family hasn't decided whether to take legal action.
She's emotionally so distraught, the mom, that we're not thinking of anything apart from the funeral.
The funeral is tomorrow. Donna Friesen, CBC News, Vancouver.
The mayor of Penticton is warning that violence will break out in his community if a native blockade of the Apex Alpine Ski Resort isn't brought to an end very soon. Talks yesterday between government officials and the Penticton Indian Band failed to resolve the 3-week-old impasse, so today the province went to BC Supreme Court for an injunction. Alan Edwards has our update.
The mayor of Penticton has a real fear of violence, Oka style, in this usually quiet, tourist-oriented community if the native blockade of a privately owned ski resort continues much longer.
There's a lot of bad feelings within the community. There's a lot of vigilante comment being made that concerns me very much, and that we must address this in a very serious nature, in a very serious manner, that we cannot escalate it beyond where it's at right now.
The blockade by the Penticton Indian Band and 2 other bands is in its 19th day. They are demanding an environmental impact study. At issue is expansion at the privately owned Apex Ski Resort. 60 construction workers have to live on the mountain. So do the resort's employees who can't open the operation to skiers. Apex Resort is in the middle of a $20 million expansion and renovation program and is near to closing down.
I'm challenging right now that we have the rights to go to our business, that 250 people have the right to go to their jobs, that 330 people that own places at Apex have the right to go to their places without harassment. I want to ask why a business in southern Okanagan who is basically the winter activity, from a recreational point of view, from an economical point of view, is being held to a point where it could face financial destruction.
The local MLA says the government is willing to fund the environmental study and send in a mediator, but the blockade has to come down.
We've also applied for an injunction on Highway 3A, and that injunction is being served today. We are also examining other means of gaining access to Apex without going over native land. And finally, the government is in discussion with Apex Alpine to help structure some bridging financing.
Talk to them about financially.
Some bridging financing in terms of a loan guarantee or something like that.
With near-perfect skiing conditions, the natives say the blockades will stay up while they take 2 weeks to consider the government's proposals. This has become such a volatile issue in the South Okanagan that the public has been invited to attend a forum to discuss all sides of the issue. That meeting is scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night. Alan Edwards, CBC News, Penticton.
The BC Police Commission says there is room for improvement in the way police handled last June's Stanley Cup riot. The Commission's report on the riot was released this morning.
And reporter Adrian Arsenault is live on Robson Street. Adrian?
Hi there, Kevin. You know, 5 months ago and 4 days ago, this spot at Robson and Thurlow was a very different place. The images from that night are still provoking discussion, and just today there was renewed criticism of the way the riot was handled. Tear gas, the Arwin gun, alcohol, the media. These are all things examined by the BC Police Commission in its quest to find out what happened the night of June 14th. Today, Commission Chair Stephen Stackhouse released his report and his general perspectives on the police department's handling of the evening.
One of the purpose of the report, of course, is to see where there is room for improvement. Officers were deployed for up to 6 to 7 hours with no breaks. There was no evidence of any sidearms drawn, and they were in terrifying conditions. But under the circumstances, yes, they performed properly.
But the Commission didn't hesitate to point out areas of concern.
The plastic bullet, which is supposed to be fired at the chest, hit him in the head.
The Arwin gun used by Vancouver police that night. The Commission reported that with plastic bullets, accuracy is very difficult, and the Arwin may produce unacceptable injuries. The Commission went on to recommend that the use of the Arwin should be reconsidered for crowd control. Among other problems, the report cites equipment shortages. For example, a lost key left some squads waiting for riot gear until late in the evening. Others discovered some of their tear gas canisters were too old to be effective. Some of it was the wrong type.
Come here! Don't go money down here! Come here!
Another problem, poor communication. The report said one riot squad ended up at the wrong intersection because they couldn't hear a radio command. Others weren't warned about tear gas. Poor communication also left some members of the public moving in opposing directions and directly into gas of 2 units. And remember the loud hailer that was supposed to warn everyone about the tear gas and the riot squad? Apparently, the battery died shortly after police began using it. Amongst the observations and the criticisms of that night, there are 32 recommendations in this report, and the Attorney General has said that wherever possible, the Police Department and City Hall will work at implementing them.
Now, Adrian, the Commission also looked at the role of the media that night. What do they have to say about reporters and cameras at the scene?
Well, they had a few recommendations. One of them is that television stations consider not locating their cameras at fixed high-profile locations. They were talking about Robson and Thurlow. And the reason for that is that the Commission suggests that having the cameras here might have worked the crowd into a bit of a frenzy.
Now, Adrian, this is not the last report on this riot. We had the City Hall report, I believe, a week or 2 ago. Now we've got the Police Commission, and there's a third one still to come.
That's right. Another report is due mid-December. It's an internal review by the Vancouver Police Department, and we learned today that there will be some parts of that report that will be made public.
All right, Adrian, thanks very much.
The NDP government has moved to protect doctors and patients involved in abortions. It's providing $100,000 to improve security at abortion clinics and has created a criminal harassment unit made up of RCMP and Vancouver police officers. The unit will recommend ways to prevent stalking and harassment of women seeking abortions and healthcare workers providing them. It's been tense at abortion clinics since the shooting of Vancouver doctor Gary Romalis last week. Health Minister Paul Ramsey said he has nothing against the peaceful expression of opinion, but violence is unacceptable.
We must all be concerned as an open and free society with the emerging trend in the last few years to move the focus of the debate away from the public forum and target individual health providers. Physicians, nurses, and other health professionals have received death threats. There are ongoing incidents of harassment and vandalism and intimidation at clinic sites.
Ramsey said the government will also help with renovations to improve security at abortion clinics, and it will help the clinics get stronger injunctions against harassment.
Concern over the shooting of Dr. Romalis was a factor last night when police responded to a 911 call in Kerrisdale. A psychiatrist reported that a man with a gun had been at his house. Police turned out in force at 49th and Elm because the psychiatrist had been receiving harassing phone calls from a former patient. But the man with a gun turned out to be a misunderstanding. It seems a man delivering a rifle to a friend in the neighborhood had knocked on the psychiatrist's door by mistake. The doctor had seen the man from behind and thought it was his former patient. Police discovered the truth today, and a spokesman said that everyone involved was a little bit embarrassed.
A Vancouver police constable has been honored for saving a teenager's life. It happened back in June of 1993 when a suicidal 16-year-old girl climbed a crane on the site of the new library building in downtown Vancouver. She sat 200 feet above the ground, threatening to jump. That's when Constable David Young tried to reason with her.
My name is Dave. I'm with the Vancouver Police Department. I'm here to help you.
She swung out to jump, but didn't, and Constable Young began to climb up to meet her. He grabbed her and stopped her from jumping. Then the two climbed down. Partway there, the girl tried to jump again, and he talked her out of it.
No!
Constable Young held the girl's hand as they made it safely to the ground. He was one of 26 BC police officers honored last night in Victoria. And Barry McDonald is standing by now with a preview look at what's coming up in sports.
Well, obviously, Gloria will be talking a little bit of football with the Lions off to Calgary for the Western Final on Sunday, and we'll also talk with Alison McNeil. Very happy to be home in Abbotsford, safe after the one of the vans on the way to Idaho was involved in an accident, not the one Alison was driving, but the one behind her. We'll talk to Alison about safety and road trips involving the SFU team. We'll have that, and the BC High School Boys Soccer Championship decided today. We'll have that for you, too.
Great. Thank you.
You bet.
Big news on the old weather front, and it comes in the form of some white material drifting down from the heavens. What might that be?
Good thing we got our white shirts on, huh? We might get lost out there tonight. We are going to have some snow. We got a heavy snow warning now for the Fraser Valley, primarily from Abbotsford to the eastern sections. Could be as high as 22 centimeters or so. And now we put up a heavy snow warning for Vancouver. Now it's going to be that wet stuff because there's a changeover and it'll change to rain in the overnight hours. But we think in the initial stages there's enough cold air around that there is the possibility, and now it's snowing in some areas around the city, not exactly where we are, so that possibility exists. That's why we put a heavy snow warning for Vancouver. We'll tell you about the whole kit and caboodle, also about the heavy rain that's coming for tomorrow too. All of that just a little later on.
Oh, yay.